Hey guys, so I had a Delta 10-inch tilting arbor saw, which was super nice. Its original price was $10,000. But when I moved into this shop, I no longer had a 220 volt feed, and I have no real way of affordably bringing one to this shop. So I decided to sell that saw. I also sold another Delta folding table saw that I had, and I bought this one and some other tools with what I got for those. As you may be able to tell, Delta is my favorite table saw brand, and this one that I got is a Delta 10-inch Contractor Table Saw. It's one that's commonly available at the big box stores. So today I'm gonna unbox it and put it together, and we'll see how it runs. I'm actually pretty excited about this. It's been a long time since I had a new table saw. As you might be able to tell, it's very heavy, but it's not nearly as heavy as the arbor saw I just got rid of. Let's get it opened up. I'm actually kind of a little apprehensive as about how much work there might need to go into putting this together. It's cold out in the shop and I don't really want it to take a long time. Look at that fence. It's not put together yet, but it feels super sturdy. It's actually similar to my Biesemeyer fence that I had on my cabinet saw. I'm liking the looks of these parts. They feel relative quality so far. Probably what I'm gonna try to do is put the legs on while the tabletop is still in there, because it looks like the tabletop portion is mostly together. All right, you think we can put this together without the instructions? I'm not sure. Might need to at least look at the picture. Okay. Put these together like that. There we go. Just gonna need to find the bolts and a persuader, maybe a small persuader so we don't dent it. There we go. This thing definitely feels like it's gonna be sturdy, I'll tell you that much. Alright, so I was correct about how they wanted us to put this together. They do have you, even in the instructions, put this on while it's still in the box. So, I'll move this over here. Ugh. Oh, she's a heavy girl. Oh, this is gonna be difficult. Would be helpful to have a helper. Whew. But I guess you don't really need one. Ugh. Hey, at least I got some target material though. Here we go. That's the stuff, as they say. Oh yeah. Whew. Oh, it looks nice. One thing that I'm gonna have to work on with this is you can kind of feel the machine edge, which I'm not a real fan of. So I'm going to basically buff this up until it's nice and glass smooth, but I'll show you how to do that. Alright guys, so I got the table saw put together actually a few months ago, and it's been sitting in my garage. It's winter, and so when I came out here, I haven't had the time to film the rest of the review. So now when I came out here to review it, I had to clean up the tabletop, as you will have if you haven't properly protected the table saw. You're going to end up with a little bit of surface rust spots here or there usually, and I had 2 of them on here that I had to clean up. Eventually I'm going to completely resurface this table and protect it even better from rust. I'll show you how to do that if you subscribe. Eventually I'll get there. Now that we got it together, the first thing you need to do is make sure that everything is squared out and dialed in. So let's do that real quick. First I'm gonna set it straight up and down on 0 here. Then let's raise it up and see if it's actually at a 90. Alright, let me grab my machine square. So what you want to do is put the square on there, make sure it's between the teeth, and then bring it up against the blade, and you shouldn't see any light from the other side of the blade at the top or bottom or anywhere. It should all be perfectly right up against your machine square's edge there, and this one is actually perfectly square from the factory. You can also check a 45 degree the same way. So let's unlock this and then go over to 45. Right on 45. And the reason you want to do this in the beginning is if you know that you've got it squared up, then you shouldn't have to worry about it from then on. You should just be able to set it to what you want without checking, and you should be good to go. Let me get something to check a 45 with. Got a little carpenter square here that's a particularly good one, and it's got a 45 edge. So we're just going to bring that up. Yeah, it looks pretty good on a 45 too. So let's 90 this back out and drop it down, and then we're going to make sure the fence is square in both planes, and we're going to check the miter gauge as well. Alright, you also want to make sure that the riving knife is perfectly in line with the blade. This one's good. You can adjust the riving knife if you need to. There's some screws down here where you can adjust which direction it is so that you can get that dead on if you need to, but in this case I don't need to. Alright, real quick, another thing you want to check is you want to make sure that your plate here is good across the board, like perfectly level with your table. This one needs a little bit of adjustment, and the way you can do that is just screw in or unscrew these little screws here until there's again no light gap. Check back here, needs to be adjusted a little bit. There, perfect. And then on the back end, just raise it up a hair. Okay, that feels good. Next, let's check our fence. And so what you're going to want to do on the fence is get it in line with one of these miter slots here, and then lock it down, and make sure that all along it's the same. It's basically exactly parallel with the miter slot. And this one actually, it needs just a hair of adjustment. So what I'm going to do is tilt it up here, and you have a little Allen key screw here, and I'm just gonna do a slight adjustment, set it back down and check it. And obviously this side would be to push it that way, and this side would be to push it this way. So let's get it parallel. And if it's tightened down, it still needs just a little more adjustment. Let's do that. And once it's locked in, okay, that was very slightly over adjusted, and you really want to spend the time to get these perfect, because once you do, it's going to make the rest of your life just so much easier. There we go. Good. Good. Nice. So that's nice and is perfectly perpendicular to the table. And let's check the other side of the miter slot just to be sure that everything's looking good. All right, I had forgotten I had pointed my camera down a little bit. Hopefully you saw a lot of that. But again, inside of here, you can see there's Allen keys right here and right here that will push the fence one direction or the other, and you just want to get that nice and dialed in. Now after that, you want to set it, and you want to make sure your fence, after it's parallel, you want to make sure it's perfectly perpendicular to the table. And the way you do that is you take your machine square and you push it up against the side, and again, you want to see basically no light, and do it on the working side. I'm doing it on this side to show you. You want to bring your fence over, make sure it's locked down, and then you check and make sure there's no light gaps, top or bottom, between the fence and your square there, and do the same at the back. And this square actually looks pretty good. If you need to adjust it, the way you would adjust it is these two little screws right here will lift it one direction or the other. And so you'll just play with that, and remember, you really want to get this super dialed in at the beginning so that you don't have to mess with it later on. And this one looks good to me. And another thing we're going to check here is the miter gauge. Just see how square that is. Nice. It's decently dialed in. It's not perfect. Personally, I don't trust these miter gauges for very fine work. It's good for just quick cuts and whatnot, but if you want fine work, you're going to need a cross-cut sled. I'm eventually going to build a new one of those. So, and if it moves too much, you can adjust your miter gauge. There's some screws in the side here that you can screw in or out and kind of get it dialed in. This one's good enough for me though. Alright, let's test the fence marks here. How you would use this is you got your blade there, and then this here should tell you how far away from your blade you are. So if you put it on 1 inch and then lock that down, you should be exactly 1 inch from your blade. So let's see. Don't know if you can see that, but yeah, we're 1 inch. Looks good. Now let's test a different length. Let's go 6 inches. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, looks like right at 6 inches. If anything, I might need to adjust this just a hair. I'll check once I make some cuts. But the way you adjust it is you can loosen these up, and you can see these slots. You can move them over a little bit and then tighten them back down until you get it exactly how you need it. And actually, the miter gauge isn't too bad. If you hold this down, You can go and it snaps in like that to the different degrees. I'm trying to do this one-handed. There you go, and then you lock it down with this like that. Well, yeah, it looks pretty good. The miter gauge actually, it slides pretty well on the table. I've had some of these where it doesn't slide so well and you've got to do some adjustments. So we got it plugged in. I'm about to give it a first startup. I have not started up at all, and we're gonna test it out here. That's actually way quieter than I was imagining. I'm kind of surprised and super happy, if I'm honest. It's a nice quiet table saw, relatively speaking. It doesn't take a ridiculous time to wind down. Let's see if this cut is nice and square. Oh yeah, looks good. Nice and square. Looking good. All right, let me try some oak real quick. Little bit of oak for you. So I'm going to put it through its paces and I'll get back to you, let you know how it's going. Alright guys, so I've been using this table saw for almost 6 months now, and I really like it. To me, it's got the best of all worlds. It's compact enough that it doesn't take up too much room compared to my Delta tilting arbor saw that I had. But it's also large and sturdy enough that it can actually do the heavier duty jobs and you have more surface area to work with as compared to my Delta job site saw that I had previously. I haven't had it bogged down on any materials I've tried to cut. I've done a lot of ripping, a lot of cutting. I got some jigs for it to help me do different things, and I've been using it a lot over the last 6 months. I've been so happy with it, to be honest with you. Delta is a good table saw company, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if you do take a chance on this saw. The fact that you can just use your foot to lift up the one end and then just move it around as you need to is just so awesome and convenient. And then you can set it back down where you want it, and it's nice and sturdy. One thing I will note is that this is slightly higher than normal table saws. It may be an inch or two, but you notice the inch or two. It's not that bad. It's not something that would make me not want this saw. It is noticeable that it's, like I said, an inch or two above where they're usually at. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you did, please go down below, hit a thumbs up. Also, feel free to subscribe because I'm going to be doing some things with this saw. I'm going to be working on this surface and making it a little better, a little more glass smooth. I'm also going to be putting in an insert right here for a table router that's going to move up and down. So if you kind of want to see how to do that, hit subscribe and it'll be coming up eventually. I'm not paid by Delta or sponsored by Delta or anything like that. I bought this with my own money. I just happen to appreciate Delta table saws in particular.